Welcome to the Wise Agent webinar series. My name is Eleni Sommerschield. I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at Wise Agent. And I'm joined today by a really dear friend of mine, Coni Meyers. Connie, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks for being here. Before we get started on all this, I'm going to, and we've got a great conversation today with Connie. I wanted to go over some of the housekeeping tips just so we can get those out of the way. So we are live on Facebook. This is being recorded. I'm pretty sure it's being recorded. Yes, it's being recorded. You will get a copy of this webinar in your inbox if you've registered beforehand. You'll get that copy in your inbox at the end, as well as some little tidbits from Connie. So we are going to get that out to you as well. There is a chat on the bottom of the screen here. So if you guys look at the chat there, and if anyone is so inclined, I'd love to see what city, state, and what brokerage you're with. I always love seeing where everyone is coming from. I love to travel. Connie knows that I love to travel. We get to see each other every now and again. So I'd love seeing where everyone is located. So if you guys wouldn't mind posting in the chat, that would be fantastic. There's also a Q&A section on the bottom here where you could ask any questions that you may have to Connie and myself. We do have the fabulous Miranda from our marketing team moderating our Q&A section in our chat this morning. So thanks, Miranda, for that being in the background. And then we're also monitoring the comments from Facebook Live, and that will continue the conversation even after the webinar is done. So you can go ahead and ask any questions there. And then this will also be posted and live forever and ever on YouTube as well. So if you're watching it on the replay there, post any questions that you may have. We're going to be watching those as well. All right. So Connie, I'm so excited to have you on the webinar because we always have great conversations whenever we see each other. I saw you the last time I saw you, we were at San Diego, I think at NAR. Did I see you before that? We get together at Inman Connect in Vegas, and we've got this great group of awesome females that get together in the summer here in Scottsdale. You are just a few hour drive away from me in Vegas. So I'm so excited to be talking to you about some crisis management. You're an expert in this field, and I would love for you to share with everyone what it is that how you became this expert in crisis management, and a little bit about our topic today, the power of preparedness.
Okay, well, first of all, I want to tell everybody it's not going to be all doom and gloom, okay? There's actually opportunity. Yeah. You mentioned disasters or crisis, and everybody goes, oh, God.
Right, but it's nice because the power of preparedness. I mean, we just went through a little bit of an ordeal, right? I think
just a little bit, yeah.
just a smidge, right? And so, so it's kind of, we all need to be prepared in some way, shape, or form. So, and this is also a good talking point with potential clients too, and clients.
Absolutely. So I always tell people that since my mid-20s, when I opened up my first insurance office, everything I have done throughout my life, and I'm 73 now, so it's been a bit of a life. Everything I've done has been in preparation for what I'm doing now. Little did I know that, but back in 2019, I'd had a couple of insurance companies. I was a founder of what was at the time the largest home inspection business back in the 80s, when you had to explain to a realtor what a home inspection was, and they'd say, why do you want that? And then I was also a founder of a company called Online Ed, which is an online education platform, primarily in the real estate space. But I also spent 7 years as a FEMA inspector and trainer. I did over 50 disasters in about 7 years. So I always had this thought, what does that FEMA stuff have to do with anything that I'm doing today? I became a life coach, an executive coach. I've trained over thousands of people on sales and marketing and business management and that sort of thing. But I always had that thought, what's that FEMA stuff have to do with anything? And in 2019, I was sitting in my chair. I'd been really sick. Whatever the COVID was back then, I had it. And I was sitting in my chair and again, I had that thought, what is that FEMA stuff? And 3 weeks later, I got an email from the California Association of Realtors, and they had the list of topics they wanted for 2020, and one of them was disasters. So I wrote them back. I said, nobody gets that but me. And so I wrote a simple little 3-hour course. And I presented it at their big meeting in October of 2019. And I also did a presentation. I moderated a panel where I brought in a FEMA director, the head of the CERT program for LA County, the gentleman who was the association executive in Santa Barbara during the fires and the mudslides.
Yeah.
And then also another mutual friend of ours who had gone through the Malibu fires. And as I'm moderating it, I'm like, oh my gosh, there is so much more that needs to be said, so much more. So being quarantined, I started writing it in January, but being quarantined, I was telling my friends, I said, if I can sit here and write about natural disasters and pandemics and active shooters and insurance and all these topics that are not pretty topics and not be depressed, being quarantined, I will never be depressed. That's a guarantee. So I ended up writing this 4-course certification, and I wrote it because as a FEMA inspector, I'd always wanted to write a book because I knew that there was businesses out there, small businesses, as well as individuals that really needed to know more about being prepared. So the certification, it does dive into natural as well as man-made disasters, but it also is stuff you can use in your real estate world. And I wrote it in such a way, the whole idea is how can we help real estate agents increase their business while giving back in such a huge way? So the emphasis of the training, the emphasis of everything that I'm doing is really all about how to have the real estate agents stand out and at the same time, potentially save lives, save lots of property and money all at the same time.
Well, it is kind of a, maybe a little bit of a, I wouldn't say taboo topic, but it is definitely a topic that's not really talked about a lot. Like, what is your disaster recovery plan? Like, what happens? I have teenage kids, but, and, they're getting older and they understand a little bit more, but when they were younger, we had a plan. We live in Arizona, there's, wildfires around us. We could see them over the summers. We could see the fires burning from our house, and so when you see that, you start thinking like, ooh, what if that happens? What if that gets close to me? And so you need to be prepared in everything, right? And having those kind of conversations, it's a conversation starter as a realtor to your clients.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. You're bringing value. You're making them prepared. I know I moved. A lot of people in Arizona typically move from somewhere, right? And there is this big migration happening across the country. So people are moving to other states. So if you're moving to California or Arizona or Texas, we all have our own little things that can happen, right? California's got the earthquakes and fires and mudslides, and
it's got it all.
Right.
Well, here's a very interesting statistic. So this came out from CoreLogic that just this in 2021, and they say that 2022, and they said 1 out of 10 homes in this country, that's 14.5 million homes, were either damaged or destroyed in 2021 alone. Wow. And then First Street, it's a nonprofit that looks at statistics, said that 10% of all homes in this country are at risk of flooding. Yeah. So, and 99% of the counties have flooding. So it's not something that just because we think, like I live in Las Vegas, and Las Vegas is considered one of the places where there are not a lot of disasters, supposedly, but right. You have to also look at other types of crisis and disasters. I mean, once you start preparing, like we were talking yesterday about your office and how well prepared you are for your office. Well, that preparation doesn't just mean that a fire has to come through. Right. It's other things that happen in your business, like cyber attacks. When I was writing about cyber attacks in 2020, the experts were saying that over the next 5 years, it would reach a level of $5.6 trillion. Well, guess what? 2021, it was 7.2 trillion. Yeah. Let's not even talk about the pandemic, what the cost of that's been. But you have power outages, you have natural gas explosions, you have chemical refineries around you. So you need to know your risk factors. And I think the most important thing, if we can rally the real estate community to really make a difference, because 2021 just natural disasters and not counting insurance cost $145 billion. We can take that money and move it so that because people are prepared to other things where we're actually making the country better, right?
Right.
What a benefit that would be, and what a feather in a real estate person's hat.
Yeah. And so I know some of we at every webinar that we're at, we always ask questions at registration, like what would you like answered this week? And there were several questions that I thought were really interesting. One, first and foremost, it came up a lot was, how did you come up with the idea of being this, maybe you can talk a little bit about the CKM Advisor. You talked a little bit about the course that you wrote. Can you explain that and let everybody know?
Well, my goal is to help 30 million people be better prepared. And that sounds like a big number, but 61% of Americans believe that they're going to be affected by a disaster over the next 3 to 5 years. 15 to 30% of them say they have some kind of preparation. And I can tell you that 30%, not so much. So I use the number 20%. And and all I'm doing is taking it from 20% to 25%. So I wanted to do something that there has to be a way of getting information out to the community, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you go on to ready.gov, it's a huge FEMA website. You get in there, you get totally lost. There's a lack of communication from the governmental agencies to the individuals and the businesses. And so the CKM Advisor, I formed that so that people could be better informed and go out to their communities, take it out to their civic organizations, take it out to their churches, their community centers, hold little workshops. And then every single month, I provide some additional type of training. It might be about a disaster. It might be about mindset, which, by the way, the most important thing you can have when it comes to disasters is a resilient mindset. That's number one.
Yeah.
So that's how I got started with it. And I really looked at it. I've never been a realtor, but I put my real estate agent hat on and said, okay, what can I do to support them? And then they can support their communities.
Yeah, I love that. And so, how does one become a CKM advisor? I know we've got some things that we'll be sharing, even through Wise Agent to make. Because again, this is something to start a conversation. As realtors, you want to be the one that provides information, valuable information, right? There has to be value behind it, valuable information to your clients and potential clients. That's what they're looking for you to do. That's the area of expertise that you serve. That is the purpose that you serve, is to provide information. And, giving people information. We were talking a little bit about how there's this great migration of people happening. I know when I moved to Arizona from Chicago, I mean, like Chicago is completely different landscape, there's different bugs, there's different creatures. I mean, I had never seen a javelina. I didn't even know how to pronounce the word. When I saw it, I'm like, what's a javelina? I didn't know. And so, I'd never seen a scorpion before in my life. I didn't know. I'm like, do you go to the hospital? What happens with all of this, right? When there's people migrating from city to city, county to county, state to state, there's things that you can have conversations about, saying like, hey, let me, as your realtor, you're looking to move into this new state from, maybe the Midwest to Texas or the Southeast or Southwest, and say like, let me explain to you some of the things that we have going on here.
Absolutely.
And I can guarantee you that no one's doing that right now, right?
No. I just finished writing a course for a new moving company called Freedom Moves USA. Mm-hmm. And it's a course about how to move, and it's attached to my little book here. It's a chapter that's going in the front of it. So when the person is moving, they'll get the information they need for the process, but also then they'll have this little book that they can talk about. So if they're moving from California to Florida, they're going to be worried about hurricanes, right? And big bugs. Right. If they're moving from Florida to California, they're worried about fires, they're worried about earthquakes, they're worried about. So having that basic information to be able to provide to people. And you mentioned scorpions, and all the little regions have, like, we have alligators, and people are, what about that kind of stuff? What do we need to know about the different species and things that are in those different areas? Yeah. So that's why I wrote the book, number one. But number two, really, I constantly am looking for new information that I can provide that talks about, okay, scorpions and javelin. How do you say that? Javelini? No, we don't
Javelinas.
have those in Vegas.
Javelinas, yeah.
Javelinas. Okay.
Yeah,
I
javelinas.
saw one when I was there visiting my son. I went,
Yeah,
oh.
yeah, right. Yeah, and so there's, Gila monsters and all sorts of crazy, critters here in Arizona that, and don't even get me started on the snakes, right? And so, right, there's value to that, because as someone, myself have migrated to Arizona, it's been 20 years, but I still, would, there's value in that. There's a big move. I mean, I am living in Arizona. A lot of people from California are moving here. It's a different thing. So you can carry on these conversations on what's a haboob and what's a monsoon and how does that affect you, and how does that, where you're going to be living, how does that affect everything? And I'm sure in different states and different regions, they have their own thing, and becoming a certified advisor to be able to provide that information, that valuable information, to have your clients be aware of what their new life is going to be like. They're going to have to learn some new vocabulary besides that, and how to deal with that, right?
Yeah, actually, and one thing there's a couple things that are universal around the country.
Yeah.
I mentioned flooding, but also there's house fires. And there's a very interesting, I believe it's either 19% or 23% of people have a evacuation plan from their home.
Yeah.
And have a meetup place. So in my fire course, I talk about that. I talk about wildfires too, but I talk about what you need to have for your family.
Yeah.
And so all of those kinds of things are such valuable information that you can give out that will make a difference. So May is National Hurricane Preparedness Month. So anybody that's moving from California or Arizona or Nevada and is heading to that part of the country, it is a 5-week or 4-week plan rather of what you should do each week to be prepared, and what you need to know about like insurance and all that kind of stuff, what you need to know to be prepared for hurricanes. Yeah. So, and across, what's beautiful is, well, I don't know if it's beautiful or not, that's probably the wrong word. The benefit is that there is something going on in every state every month. Yeah. And as we've seen in the last few years, I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, there were over 260 tornadoes that hit the Southeast. Yeah. Yeah. So it's and a lot everywhere. Of devastation there. Yeah, definitely. And that's something, and it can also provide benefit and value even for the realtors, right, that are watching this today and saying, you need to also protect your business. I was, I was telling Connie this the other day. I was talking to Brandon in his office, our CEO, and I said to him, do you smell that? It smells like electrical burning. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's your monitor. Like literally, I'd never seen this in all my years. I'd never seen like smoke coming out of his monitor. Like, what if that would have happened after hours, right? And no one was in the office. I mean, we could have ignited a whole fire and the whole office would have burned down. And so we started talking like, what if that would have happened? I'm like, well, I already have a plan. I'm like, and so we have a plan. I mean, every business should have a plan, but every family should have that plan too, where like, where's your data? So good thing is, if you're using Wise Agent, right? We have a plan for all of that. Everything's stored in the cloud. And even if things, the whole West Coast falls into the ocean, we've got a backup going on in Virginia. And even if that, then we've got something in the Midwest. I mean, so like the odds and the likelihood of everything going under is, like the West Coast, the East Coast, the Midwest, and we got other major problems happening right in our life. But well, yeah, I think it's important, and it's kind of like the whole airplane thing. Put your mask on first. Yeah. Make sure that you have your business protected. And I've got 31 points that when I talk to somebody about a business continuity of the things you need to have, and well, I don't like to put it all out at the one time, because it's too overwhelming. It's just like putting together emergency kits. You need at least 4 emergency kits, and more if you've got children or elderly or whatever living with you. But with a business, I think the thing that I really admired about what you've done is what you just said, is that you have redundancy outside of your area. So when I'm talking about in the training, I talk about what you need to have for your business. And one of the things you need to do is you need to have 2 crisis centers. And this is true whether you're a one-person brokerage or office, or whether you're a giant, you got thousands of agents. You need to have 2 locations, one within your office that everybody that's part of the crisis team knows to go to, and that it's properly stocked and you've got the right tools and things. But you also need to have a location that's outside and away from your location, so that if something happens, you can have someplace to go and you can continue on your business. And then another important point that I always make is you need to have backup vendors. So what happens if you're using the same person over and over and over again, but something happens to them and you can't continue your business?
Right.
So,
Like an example would be your phone, like the phone system. So in your office, you're using some phone provider, have some kind of backup to that.
yeah, and a separate email.
And separate email. Yeah.
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 So those are all kinds of tips that we talk about as far as the business go. It's really frightening. So the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and FEMA came up with some numbers when it comes to small businesses. If you experience some kind of a disaster and you do manage to reopen, first of all, 40% of all businesses will not reopen.
Wow.
Second of all, in 2 years' time, a total of 75% of those will be out of business. So it is critically important. And just think of the value you can bring to your community by being a good example. First of all, put your mask on first. But second, being able to go to your clients and how to get potential clients is saying, hey, I'm going to do this little meeting on preparing your office.
Yeah.
And that just raises the caliber of who you are to a whole new level.
Yeah. And that, I think that's because that was one of the questions is like, okay, one of the questions for this webinar was, how do I get more leads? That would be a great way to get more potential clients saying, I'm going to be providing some value. Come and hear how you could become prepared in case of some kind of crisis or emergency or natural disaster happens. Come and find out about this. You use a Wise Agent landing page to capture everyone's information that is coming to your seminar. And then you provide that value, and then you keep in touch with them, and then you do what you do best, which is build relationships. And then you build relationships with those people to then see like, hey, could I, maybe could I help you, with the needs that you have in buying or selling a home or whatever it is. But once you build that relationship, once you capture those people, that's how that would work.
Well, that's exactly why I wrote this little book. When the unthinkable happens, be prepared, be ready. It's designed for consumers and for small businesses.
Yeah.
And you can actually white label this, and you can actually add a chapter about you if you want into it. But this is not a book that goes on a bookshelf. This is a book that goes with their reference materials. And so they're going to be seeing you, because I tell them every year you need to refer back to this to figure out what you need to have, what plans you need to change. And then what a great tool for you to, on a 1-year anniversary or something, you send out a little email. By the way, have you done have you updated your kits? Have you updated your plans?
Yeah.
That's a really, first of all, it shows how caring you are, number one, right?
Yeah.
And then, I've done all the work for you. You don't have to, I just provide it for you.
Right.
So you can go out, and if somebody wants something specific, like I was asked about this moving chapter, then I'm more than happy to put something together.
Yeah, nice. And so you mentioned these kits a couple of times. Can you tell us like what goes into a kit, and how do you calculate how many? Like I'm a family of 5, so how many kits would I need?
Okay, probably about 7.
7 kits. Okay.
Okay. So I don't want this to be overwhelming, but so you need to have your general kit that has everything in it that you would, like a duffel bag or maybe 2 duffel bags. And one of the things you want to put in it is anything that's small enough to be, that's an heirloom or valuable. One of the very first disasters I did, my first disaster was the Northridge earthquake. And after that, I did a flood in Central California. And one of the very first inspections I did, I drove up in front of this house, and it was this elderly man. He had to be in his mid-80s. And he's sitting on the front porch, and he's got what looks like just a bunch of wood. And I drove up, and I got out of the car. He was in tears. I got out of the car. I walked up. I said, I'm Coni Meyers. I'm the FEMA inspector. How can I help you? And he said, this was my grandfather's toolbox. And my heart just broke, because the thing had to be 150 60 years old. Anyway, so if you, and one of the worst things people lose is our old fashioned hard copy pictures.
Yeah.
So if you have photos that are valuable to you or anything else, if it's too big to go into your emergency kit, make sure you have a plan for what you're going to do with that.
Yes.
Because that's the things that breaks people's heart.
Yeah.
Those are the things that are irreplaceable.
I'll tell you with the pictures, like, I have pictures of like my great grandparents and whatnot. And, some of them are overseas in Greece. And so what I've done when I was at my grandmother's house, I took pictures of all of them. And, my pictures, I have an iPhone, but you can do this with an iPhone. You could go to your iCloud, you could go to your Google Photos if you have an Android phone. I have mine connected to my Google Photos. So they're all in there, and I can just search and say like, the Greek city name of where my grandmother lives. I can put that in and it'll bring up all of the pictures that I've ever taken in that city. So then I can show my kids like, oh, this is where, this was my great grandfather. This is my grandfather, because that's a great little tool, because then I would hope that would be saved, but I don't live there. I'm not in that home all the time. And so if that's something that, it needs to be where it is. So that's something that's of value. You can take pictures of them and store those pictures.
Absolutely. And what you should do is always, so I always tell people, go inside your house, outside your house, open up every door, every drawer, take video of the rooms by room. And that way, when something does happen, you can go back and say, oh, well, I had this, this, and this, because I promise you, after a flood or a fire, you are not going to remember what you had. And so by having these videos, you can go back and look at it and say, here. So in addition, so you need to have those, that's part of your plans.
Mm-hmm.
In your kit, you need to have your big kit, but then you need to have just an emergency go bag, where if you have, like, if there's a fire, you may only have, like with our friend Sarah, she only had 15 minutes to get out. And she got to the shelter and she had forgotten anything for her 2 little girls. Mm. So that's why it's important to put these kits together ahead of time.
Yeah.
The number one thing you need to have in your kit is cash. Mm. And FEMA doesn't talk about it. Nobody talks about it. Yeah. But if something happens where the power goes out, and not everybody has a generator, they're starting to get there, but they're not there yet. You need to have cash. And people always ask me how much cash. I said, well, that depends on your area. Think about what it would cost you to go stay in a hotel room for 7 days, and start with that.
Okay.
And then the other things are the basic stuff, but there's things like you want to have a whistle. You want to have fireproof matches. If you have food that's in cans, you need to have a can opener. I have a whole list.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, the download they're going to get today has a list.
Yeah.
So the second kit is a go kit. The third kit is a kit for your car, which is going to be different if you're Arizona versus upstate New York. You need to have one for your business. If you work outside of your home, what do you have do you have an emergency kit for you at your work? Then you need to have a kit for your kids, and that should be an individual kit for each kid. And let them, this is a good way for them to kind of overcome the fear or the scariness of it. Let them get the basics, and then let them put in like their favorite stuffed animal or favorite toy or whatever it is, and let them help to build their own little kit. And then you need to have, if you have anybody that's disabled or elderly that lives with you, you need to think about what those kits look like. But again, I don't want this to overwhelm people, because it can be a lot. So just start with the basics. Just start with and then just create your plans.
Yeah.
You need a kid plan, and a parent plan, a communications plan, an evacuation plan. You need to have all of those plans, and that's all in the download, and it's also in the book.
Yeah. And so there's a question on, is there a checklist to utilize or access so they can, see what all of this would be? And Connie has been gracious enough to give us access to that, and give anyone that has a Wise Agent account. That is in one of the stock letters. I'm going to share my screen right now and show you guys how you could access this. So let me share my screen, because this is really important. What Connie said, she worked for FEMA. So knowing, when she said, like, have some cash on hand, if that's not something that they really talk about, Connie knows, because she was one of those people that would talk to you about it, right? And got trained on this. So from Wise Agent, if you just go to your letters and you open up your letters here, the Wise Agent letters, if you just look under, there's some letters here for disaster recovery, tips to prepare to survive and recover from disasters. And once you click on that, it will open up this letter where you could, either email this out, you could print this out and, have it at different open houses. You can give this out to anyone, put it in, put it in your, any kind of your marketing plan or whatever it is, or as a little emergency kit for them to start their emergency kit. But it says everything in here, cash and small bills, huh? So you don't want to have a bunch of hundreds in there. So what you need, it's all in here where you can have, where you'll have access to this to be able to send this out to your database really easily. There's also an emergency information sheet, right, Connie?
Yes.
You've also given us access to, which is great because you need to know like who are all of your emergency contacts, right? And this would be not just for me to have, but also for like my kids to have. Leave that because we talked yesterday for a minute, and you mentioned something to keep. Would this be something that they would keep on their front door? So if they were to, there was a fire.
Yeah, so
Evacuate.
this would not necessarily be what you
Okay,
put,
not
but
for
make
that.
sure you put, if you are evacuating, if you're leaving, if you're going to a friend's house or a shelter or something, put on your front door that you're not in the house and where you've gone, because that way when the first responders show up, they know they don't have to break down the door. They don't have to search inside the house because they know that you're out. So that's a really good way of helping the first responders. And along that line, you know who the first responders truly are when it comes to disaster? It is you and your neighbors. So you need to have a plan of what you're going to do. And there's an incredible free program. It's called the Community Emergency Response Teams. I talk about it in my training. I talk about it in my book on how to belong. And it's based upon the risks for the particular communities, but they have over 600,000 volunteers around the country. And I'm sure there's like over 2,700 now, because that number was from a little while ago, of people that are communities that actually have CERT programs. If your community does not have a CERT program, reach out to me. I've got the information on how to put one together. And there's nothing better than getting involved on the community level.
Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely. And that's something, I mean, there's so many different things. I'm even thinking back when I first moved to Arizona, here, the wildfire season, if you have brush that's overgrown and touching your property, and maybe, the brush is touching your house, your roof line or something, you could even contact your town and have that cut back. So it helps you prevent fires. I mean, there's so many things to think about when you're thinking about some of these disasters that may happen, that really, it is hard to remember that as a property owner, but then as a realtor, try to conveying that to everybody, having all of those resources in one area where you can just say, hey, here's this pamphlet, here's this resource guide for you to, for the realtors to share with their clients and their potential clients, it's just so much value in that, that I think that's, that's really valuable.
When somebody becomes a CKM advisor, it's about a 400-page resource center of things that are available. It's divided up into topics and stuff like that. But and then if there's something that's not in there, then just let us know and we'll work with you to get it out there, because the topics are so huge.
Yeah.
And they're so varied depending upon where you live and what you're doing. But really the most important thing is just to take that first step. Take that first step. Start with your simple go bag, or the kit. So my nonprofit is coming out. Our first initiative is called Kits for Kids. Mm-hmm. And I'm super excited about this. I want to partner with real estate companies and individuals, because the goal is to put a kit in the hands of every child, just a basic kit, and then they can go home and enhance it. But if I can get the kids are pretty powerful salespeople. Mm-hmm. And if I can get the kids to come home with their kit saying, hey, mom and dad, where's our kit? Right. Just maybe, and maybe that's an opportunity for you. if you join me in this initiative, for you to go to your community and go to the schools and say, hey, let's have a community outreach. Let's put some kids together. Let's make this a fun thing. Let's make it a picnic, or make it fun. That's the thing, everybody, FEMA calls it preparedness, procrastination. It's because people don't want to think about it. They don't want to think over the fact that there might be a disaster. And it doesn't have to be what you might think is a disaster. If you're prepared for this, you'll be prepared for other types of crises and disasters that happen in your life. And one of the main things I talk about in the training is mindset, leadership, and communication, because those are the three that's the most important course in the entire training. I write that one.
And that leads to a question that somebody asked, where, how do you mentally prepare for a crisis? How do you, what's your thoughts on that, Connie?
Well, there's actually, when they download that, make a plan, do the plan, it's called STOP. It's an acronym. So the first thing you want to do is S for stop, let your mind go blank. And this is seconds. Okay. This is not, you don't take hours to do this, seconds. Then you take some deep breaths. T for take some deep breaths. And then third, you observe what's going on inside of you, get your emotions, where are you emotionally, and then observe what's going on outside of you. And then P is take the plan, do the plan, proceed with the plan. And if you take, and this works no matter what you're doing, if you're getting ready to have a big important phone call, you can use this STOP acronym to be able to get yourself in a mind. Like I did the STOP just before we went live.
Yeah.
Okay, let's be prepared for this.
Right.
So I talk about all of that in there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. A couple of questions here. So how often should your kits be updated? Like, so do you just make these kits and then they just stay in, like I have a kit and it is by my garage door because I have my garage door leading to my house, and I do know how to pull the little red string so then I can open up my garage door. So that's kind of important. That's right. That's important, because that's something that our garage door broke, and I was like, how am I going to leave for work this morning? And so I had to figure that out. So now I know how to do it, but it is important because if there is a fire or some kind of electrical outage, how are you going to get your car out? So I have mine by my garage door. But how often should that be updated and refreshed?
Every single year. Okay. And the thing of it is, so when I was doing the live training that I did for California Association of Realtors, there's probably about 30 people on the training. And I went around and asked everybody, okay, are you prepared? Are you prepared? And most hands, no. But there were a few hands that said, yes, I've got it. I've got an emergency kit. And I said, okay. And I went to, I think there were like 10. I went to each one of them and I said, okay, what's in your emergency kit? And almost all of them said the same thing. Well, it did have this and this and this, but I needed that tape, or I needed those scissors, or I needed that lighter. And so I borrowed it out of the emergency kit. So you want to look at it every year. That's why this is such a great tool. This is such a great gift, because in here, they're going to go, I tell them, please go and read this again and look at your plans and look at your kits. And every single year you should do that. And when it comes to drills, if you have children, now FEMA recommends that you do a drill once a year. Okay. I don't think that's enough, especially if you have children or you have elderly or somebody that's disabled in your home. I say the first year you should do 4 for the first year, and then maybe 2 the next year, until you know for sure that everybody in your family or everybody in your business understands what their role is. And if you have a business, your communication plan is key. Who's going to be responsible for what?
Yes. Yeah,
so
that is really important.
At least every year you need, and stuff expires. Like if you buy nutrition bars or you buy the little can things, those things expire after a period of time.
Yeah. Well, I have an emergency kit for everything. I keep an emergency kit in my purse because I'm like, you never know. I travel a lot. So like I have a little sewing kit. I always have scissors in my car because, well, I had younger kids. Now they're a little bit older, but we would go to like amusement parks and they always put those wristbands on that you could never pull off. And they'd always cry because it was, so now I always carry scissors with me. I don't know why.
I need to use you as my model.
I just like being prepared. I'm always like, I do not like surprises. Like I don't like surprises. So I don't like being caught off guard. And so, I always have extra
Next
contact.
time I come to Arizona, I'm going to videotape your preparedness.
Okay.
I need to show it as okay, this is how you really do it.
Like I literally in my purse, this is my little emergency kit for
I love it.
for myself,
I love
that I carry with, I travel with that,
Well, the world is talking a lot about sustainability.
Yeah.
And in order to create sustainability, we have to be prepared.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that is the lead in to sustainability. So whether it's sustainability of your business financially, or if something happens, how you move forward, or whether it's sustainability as far as lowering your carbon footprint.
Yeah. And there's a couple of more questions. Someone was asking, how do they get in touch with you? And so we'll make sure that we get your contact information in the chat. I think it was Anne that was saying that she loves this whole topic, but and she wants to know more. She even gave her contact information for you, Connie, to talk about this. I'm so happy that this is resonating with people, because it is something that is not, it's not really talked about that much. I mean, I don't think, besides my immediate family, my husband and my kids, they know about my emergency kit, but really, no, I don't really talk about that. I even made my sister an emergency kit. I was like, you need to have one. So,
well, it's interesting, Eleni. I attended the Sustainability Summit, and Todd Shipman was the facilitator of it with NAR. And he and I've had a couple of conversations, and they're talking about sustainability, which is critically important.
Yeah.
But they are not talking about preparedness and not talking about resiliency.
Yeah.
And he says, we're not talking about the topics you're talking about.
Yeah.
So if anybody is interested, I'm doing 2 free webinars, one on the 28th of April and the other one on, I think it's May 5th. It's you go to the link and it takes you to the events page, where I'm talking about how to use this in your business, how to increase your bottom line by giving back. I mean, what a wonderful, it's a perfect fit for real estate agents.
Yeah. There's a great question in here from Sylvie saying, my business is on my computer and my phone. Knowing things are saved on the cloud, is that sufficient? Otherwise, what's the best way to have redundancies? I would say this, Sylvie, I think that's a fabulous question. What I personally do is I do have everything in the cloud. So it's all in my Google, Drive and Docs, but I do save a copy on my computer, which then also has a backup. Because I think it was it last year, maybe 2 years ago, I woke up one morning, I wake up early and I go to check my email and Google was down, right? Google goes down, not very often, but it does. And if you need to access a file and you can't, that's never good. So I always have, especially my important documents go in my Wise Agent account, where we're all cloud-based as well. And we have backups. And even if you delete, we have, ways to retrieve those things. So we have backup. I have so many redundancies. It's kind of you need a mind chart to really go through it all. But
redundancy is important. There was I was speaking at an association. Actually, it wasn't just association. It was a great big TV national event that was being broadcast from this association. And a couple of weeks before, they had a ransom attack at the association. And because they had 4 deep in redundancy, the attack made it all the way through the first 3, but the third one stopped it from the 4th. So and the members didn't know at the time what was happening, because they automatically had all these pieces in place, like I'm sure you do. And so it's important that you do have backup. You have a backup for your computer, you have backup for what's on the cloud. And Google goes down, stuff happens. And so, it's important to make sure that you do have some kind of way of backing everything up. Even if it's just having an external drive, that's better than nothing.
Yeah. And Sylvie's asking, how do you save emails to your computer? I'm going to show you how you could save an email from Wise Agent, because this will help you. Let me get this ready here, because I have to go to my my personal account here.
That's a great question, by the way.
Yeah, it is a great question, because there is so much that's happening that you need to make sure that you have you have access to the things that you need to have access with in order to run your business. And if your email is a big part of it, what happens if your email service goes down and you need to access something and you can't complete a closing, or you can't, move on from here? So this is my son, we have his phone number. But so I have my Google conversations going on here, right? And so I can see all of my conversations from him. And so if there's something important, let me make sure I'm sharing my screen here all the way. So if there's something that's happening, so here's, his basketball thing. And, obviously this is for, just basketball. But what I would do is I would just save this as a note. So now this gets saved just by clicking this here. I could save this. If there's an attachment, I can save the attachment as well. So now the note is saved within Wise Agent, and I can go back and read that note. If I have a checklist within Wise Agent, I can save that note in a checklist for, whatever the transaction is, and even save the attachment as an attached file here. So there's several ways of doing that. I do that with every single critical email, because what if I can't access my account? What if I can't find it, or if I inadvertently deleted it? I don't know about you guys, but I'm notorious for like walking around with my phone in my hands and something gets swiped and it's like, what did I just delete? I deleted something and now I can't get it back, right? And so if I inadvertently delete something, guess what? It hasn't been deleted because it's in my notes in Wise Agent. So you have that redundancy. So any of those critical emails, save those in your Wise Agent account. That is something that you can absolutely do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I think that's a really helpful one. One of the things that I think about too, when it comes to these disaster recoveries, is to just have, to have a plan in place is great, but you shouldn't have it just in your mind. I don't know about you, Connie, but I like seeing it. What if, for me, I'm a take charge kind of person. But I need to make sure that everybody is aware of the plan, right?
Oh yeah, you have to
have it written all out, right?
Oh,
You can't just have it memorized in your head.
No, you've got to have written plans. And whether it's your business or whether it's your family, you got to have a communication plan, an evacuation plan, a responsibilities plan, and whatever particular things are to your particular situation. And then you need, like, if you've got a business, you need to be able to share that with all your team, because you need to let them know what they're responsible for. And that's why it's important to have like team meetings, like crisis team meetings. And by the way, one important point here, because a lot of real estate agents are one-person offices, right? Mm-hmm. So how do they create a team? They create a team by either grouping together other agents, or you can pull in your accountant, your attorney, your home inspector, whoever, title person, mortgage person, bring those people in and create a team with their expertise. So, because that team you need to know how to back up your data. You need to know what the communication, how are you going to get a hold of all your clients? Yeah. What vendors do you need to know? How are you going to communicate with them? How are you going to pay your staff? All those things are important if you're going to be able to continue on that business and not become one of the statistics. Yeah, absolutely. But having a plan written out, save that, obviously put that up in the cloud. So have it, email it to yourself, email it to your partners, to your friends, to your colleagues, whoever it is that you're working with, or your family. And then maybe even have a physical copy of it. Like for us here in our office, at each entryway, I have a seating chart, and I have everyone's name in that seating chart, because if there is a fire, I mean, I'm responsible, Brandon and Mike, we're responsible for making sure the well-being of everyone in this office. And if, knock on wood, there is a fire, I need to be able to say, like, to the, you know what, these people are not accounted for. This is where they normally sit. Here's what the layout of the office looks like, right? And that's by the door. It's already printed out, so I don't have to fumble around. So on my way out, I could just grab that off the wall, and it has a list of everyone's contact information, their cell phone number. You just have to be prepared, because you never know. Well, and something we don't want to talk about, but it's definitely a reality in today's world. And the numbers last year were staggering, and I'm sure this year they'll be even bigger, is shooters. And what you just said is a very important component. And then how you're protecting your team, how you're protecting people that are coming into your offices. What are some things you can do, simple things that you can do to be able to prevent it? And then I think the most important thing is just being totally aware. This is when my friend Tracy Hawkins, the safety lady, says, when you feel the hair on the back of your neck go up, pay attention.
Yeah.
But having some plans in place, because you never know. And the statistics are pretty alarming.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's all wonderful information. I'm so grateful that for you, Connie, and sharing all of this within Wise Agent to be able to have. I mean, I could even see it as we were talking. You know, my brain starts churning and thinking, and I thought, you know, what a great way to even get. You know, we were talking about how do you get more clients based on this, and I think you could create a landing page. You could create an event and invite people over to, you know, some area, your office, wherever, to learn more about the power of preparedness. And then, you know, speak to them on that, have that landing page, create all of this, you know, and then one of your rules, if you guys are Wise Agent members, you know that you could automatically send out an email as soon as they submit that they're attending, or you could put them on a drip campaign. So you could have on your drip campaign after the event, and you could set it up all beforehand, because I'm all about preparedness and setting things up before it even happens, where you would then be able to send them that checklist that I shared with you, this checklist here that shows you know, what they would need to do, not this one, this one here, this checklist. You could share this with them so they can create their own emergency kits. You can do so many different things with this information, even with this emergency information. You could have this as part of your drip campaign after the sale of a property. You could send this out to your clients and say, hey, you know what? Welcome to your new neighborhood, your new home. Here's an emergency information that you should probably be aware of. Put all this information down so you have it somewhere and everyone in your family is aware of this. So that would be something that I'm just grateful that you've given this gift to us all.
Oh, well, it's my pleasure. The more I can get the word out, I need help. I need help in getting to my 30 million people, and the people that are part of Wise Agent can be a big part of that. And we can work together to make a real difference in our communities.
Yeah. And for Donald and anyone else that's wondering, how do you get this checklist and everything? It is from our letters section. So if you go to marketing and click on letters, you can just find this in here in the disaster recovery. Right here, you'll see the two here. There's the information sheet and then the tips to prepare. So that's where you would be able to get it. And the checklist is not a Wise Agent checklist. It is just simply a letter for them, because this is not like, okay, you have to do this every single day or something. This would be the checklist that you would have. It's just a plan. So this would be how you would get that. Okay. And
I just saw a great question.
The pets. Yeah.
So I told you my story about the kits for kids, right? And why we're doing it. Well, I honestly believe that when we come out with our kits for pets, it'll probably sell bigger, or we'll be able to get rid of it better than we did with the ones with the kids. But that's beside the point. Yes, there is complete training on what you need to do to protect your kits, because as a FEMA inspector, there is nothing more heart-wrenching when you go to a disaster and you see animals running around. They're looking for their masters. They're scared. You know, the masters are at shelters or someplace worried about what happened to their pets. And it used to be that pets were not allowed in shelters, some, except unless they were a service pet. But there are shelters now that are starting to accept small animals. But you've got to have a plan for that pet, because it is whether you're going to shelter in place or what you're going to do with that pet if you can't take it to the shelter.
Yeah, definitely. That's all wonderful, because the more that you're prepared, the easier things come out at the end. Once you're at the end of that crisis, it's just you're a little bit less stressed with that. And, you know, especially with the the 2-year ordeal we've had through this pandemic, it's nice to just not have as much stress, right? Thinking about all these
Well,
things.
yeah, being prepared, you already know, like, you know where everything is. You don't have to think about it. Our
Yeah.
friend Sarah, she said she was told 15 minutes. She spent around half of that time trying to figure out what to do. If you're prepared, you don't have to worry about that. When it comes to survival, if you've got the preparation, the pieces in place to survive, it's going to be efficient and it's going to go more smoothly. When it comes to recovery, if you have preparedness, what you're going to be able to do is recover much faster, or it could possibly be the difference between recovering and not recovering. So in all of the phases of any kind of crisis or disaster, the more prepared you are, the more resilient the mindset, the better you're able to build back better and make a smooth transition. And my favorite quote happens to be one of my own. Disasters create humanity. It gives us time to pause, and it gives us time to change. And truly, that is the most, I mean, that I believe that's why God creates disasters, because when you, after disaster, you see the family, all the neighborhoods coming together.
Yeah.
And that's every disaster I ever did. That was the thing that I always took away, how that community came together.
Oh, yeah, that's wonderful. That's wonderful sentiment. And then one last question that we have here from Donald. We talked a little bit about, if there's a fire and you leave and you evacuate your house, leave a notice for the fire department so they know that you've evacuated and you're safe. He's asking, would that invite looters? And I'll let you answer that one, Connie.
Well, okay. So the difference between potentially saving your own lives and the lives of responders has precedence over what is inside. But you're right. I mean, if they're saying you're God, but you know what? Looters are going to loot no matter what.
Yeah.
Whether you have a sign on the door, whether you don't have a sign on the door, they're going to break in. They're going to. But
well,
if
the
you're
house
leaving
is
that
on
sign on the door, you're
yeah.
saying I have to leave.
Yeah.
My life is in danger.
Yeah. But if the house is on fire, are looters really going to go in and try and take the screen TV and risk their own life? I don't know. I mean,
No.
I would say, do what makes sense for you in that
Yeah,
scenario.
I mean, that's a personal choice.
Yeah, do what makes sense for you. But if it's, if your house is burning and, and everyone is out, putting that sign just so then you don't put other people at risk, the first responders at risk, I think is, fine for most situations. But yeah, just do what you think is best.
If you're uncomfortable with it, then don't do it, but find a way of reaching them and letting them know you're not there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Connie. I really appreciated your time today and sharing all this information. I hope everyone that's watching this live and even on the replay has learned some things and how you could start a conversation with your clients and potential clients to add value to them. I really do appreciate you. Thanks so much.
I appreciate you too. Thank you so much for having me. And if somebody's interested about learning more, they can go to my website. I've got a couple of free webinars where I talk about why you want to become a CKM advisor, and then also what the training is all about.
Yeah, thank you. And then I am going to be traveling the next 3 weeks. I will be out of town, out of the office for quite some time, but I will be back on the webinar on May 12th with my good friends over at Revaluate with our newest integration release that we are launching. And so that's going to happen on May 12th. I look forward to seeing everyone then. Check back on our events page from wiseagent.com to see where I'm going to be traveling. I'm going to be at NAR mid-year in Maryland. So if anyone is going to be in the Maryland area at the NAR event, I know, Connie, you and I are both missing Inman Connect this week. For me, it's Holy Week. So I'm here at home for the week, but I know I got an email yesterday from one of our Wise Agent members. I ran into one of our mutual friends, Kendall Young. He's like, "Oh, look who I met." So I was like, "Oh, yay." So I'm always excited that we're connecting people. So yeah.
Well,
so if you guys,
I've known you for a long time, and it's just every time I see you, it's just a pleasure.
Oh, thanks, Connie. You're just so near and dear to my heart. I appreciate you and I value our friendship and value you. Thank you everyone for joining in. I'll see you guys in a few weeks. If you're in Maryland for NAR mid-year, I hope you stop by our booth. All right, take care. Have a good one, Connie.
You too.
Bye-bye.